Today on Dice and Dragons, I'm back! It's a cooperative game, so today we're reviewing Rising 5, The Runes of Astaros, and I'm going to let Jay take you through a little bit more about it.
Yes, and as you know, she loves her cooperative games, not so much the competitive ones, at least the ones where we're actually fighting against each other. So in Rising 5, Runes of Astaroth, this is a 1 to 5 player cooperative game. The game is published by Grey Fox and Mondu Games. You also have involvement from Holy Grail Games and Gary Kim Games. The game is designed by Gary Kim, Evan Song, with art by Vincent Dutre. And one thing I gotta say, as you can see just from the box art, it is quite beautiful. We'll take a look at that as we go into the playthrough, and we'll come back to it in our review. And the game is also an app-driven game. Now the app is only needed if you want to play co-op exclusively. You can have a game master. We also have a couple ideas how you can include the game master potentially in the game. But you'll need the app to play just the 1 to 5 player version purely cooperatively. And what ages is it for, Julie, and how long does it take?
It's 10 and above in about 30 minutes.
Okay. And this is a deduction game. When there is some combat elements to it, what you're primarily trying to do is seal a gate, and you're trying to deduce what runes you need to get onto the board to seal the gate and save the planet Astaros from the evil that will show up when the red moon rises and eclipses the sun. So we're going to tell you guys how to play the game, then we'll tell you what we think of it. And as always here on Dice and Dragons, we're going to grab our drink. And as Julie's back, I'll be grabbing my best friend. And we're taking it to the table. Stay tuned.
Aww.
Now let's take a look at the components that come with Rising 5 by Grey Fox Games. We're going to start with two of the components that you're not going to be using on a regular basis. This is the Game Master board. Now the reason why you have this is because if you do not have access to the app or your phone runs out of power, one person can actually game master the game, meaning you'll always be able to play it. Now that might be maybe not a necessary feature for some people, but I really like it because it means the game will always be playable, even if the app becomes outdated and you can't play it on some newer software. You've got this little piece of cosmic space, and this is really just for the game master to provide the information to the players if they are guessing correctly towards what runes they need to seal the gate and save Astaros. Now you also have this marker right here, and this marker is primarily used to help your app take the picture. So you set it up with the corresponding colors in the proper direction, and we'll explain a little bit more to use that when we get into the setup. And let's take a look at what's really going to be the meat of the game, the rest of the components. So we have our nice character standees. We've got Nova, we've got Echo, we have Hal, Eli, and Oracle. And those are the 5 characters that make up the Rising 5. Now we also have 2, as you can see, and I'll just take out a couple of them here. 2 of each kind of rune. Now you might be wondering why there are multiples of each kind of rune. Well, that's why I started off with the Game Master board, because if you are playing with one person being the Game Master, well then you need more runes than just the one that you'll be swapping in and out as you try to solve the puzzle and seal the gate. It's the same thing for the constellation tokens. As you can see, we've got a whole whack of them. And that's because you'll need some for the Game Master and also some while you're playing the game to, set stuff up as you're trying to decode what are the proper runes that you need. And I want to highlight some of the different looks of the constellations, because this glowing one here means you have the correct rune in the correct spot. So what you would do is if you, let's say the red one was correctly placed, you would identify it like that, meaning you don't want to move it. You've set it up properly. The constellation outline that you can see right here means you've got the correct rune to seal the gate, but it's not in the right spot. And then you've got the red outline finally, and that means you just completely are in the wrong spot. We also have our combat die, which is 6-sided, and the Eclipse logo here is the one thing you don't want to see. That means that you fail your combat outright. We have these 4 plastic cubes, which represent the silk, the resource that you're going to need to be obtaining in order to seal the gate. You have your eclipse token marker, which will just basically track how well you're doing and preventing Asteros from being destroyed. Now let's take a look at the meat of the game, which is the character deck. Now I'm going to flip over a whole bunch of the character cards where you can see there are a lot of multiples of every character. And as you'll notice, they're quite clumped together. And the reason for that is as every player controls all the heroes. We're going to explain that a lot more in the how to play and also in the setup as well. But the character cards are how you decide which hero you're going to activate. That's why there are multiples of all of them. And it's not a bad thing to have 2 or 3 for the same hero in your hand. We then have the 3 location decks that are numbered 1, 2, and 3. And the top 2 cards for each deck are gray. Those are your starting cards. So when you're going to be doing the setup, you start with your 2 gray cards out, and then you would have your starting deck set up on the board in the correct position. So there are 3 locations, 1, 2, and 3. We have the 3 sets of cards that correspond to it. The next thing we'll take a look at are the artifacts. Oh, I was grabbing the relics. The artifacts are these 4 ones here, and they're special cards that you can, once you've obtained them, you can trigger them when you need to. So we have the solar ring, which would basically let us move up the eclipse track. Very good card. We have the extra clue token, which would let us help identify what one of the rune symbols are. We also have the 2 silk, the ether ones, which is very good, especially if you need to catch up as you're getting close to the end of the game. We also have the potion that lets us ignore one of the eclipse symbols when we roll, which can definitely save the day, especially if you start getting towards the end of the eclipse track. And then we'll take a look at the real big ones. We have the 3 special relics, the big items in the game. So we have this one right here, the red pendant, which will block a red moon, which is really good. We'll explain what that does as we get into how to play. There is the sword. The sword will let you automatically kill any monster that has a 4 or lower attack value. Really great. And then you have the staff that gives you 3 aether. And those are some of the big items. You will be able to acquire them when defeating a mini boss. We'll talk a little bit about that when we go through the how to play, if they happen to show up on the board. If not, I might just pull one out and explain how you can potentially defeat one of them. And finally, we have the Red Moon Rising cards. There are 5 of them. And these 5 cards are how you control your difficulty level. As you can see on the back, they match the character deck. And you will deal between 3 to 5, there is a total of 5 cards, into the deck to set the difficulty. For an easier game, it'll be 3. The harder game, obviously, is 5. You will deal your cards, shuffle them out, and then you're going to place the Red Moon cards basically evenly through the deck. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail when we get into the setup of the game, which is actually coming right up. So stay tuned as we shift stuff over and get the game board set up for you. We've started setting up the game board. As you can see, we've got the location decks in their starting positions. We have the silk cubes right next to the location that we're going to need to place them once we acquire the resource, but we've yet to set up our puzzle. Also, you'll note that I've decided to keep the Game Master board out, and the reason for that is I'm going to use the Game Master board to explain the information you would put in an app. Without trying to get some screen caps from an iPhone, it'd be a little difficult to explain that to you. So I'm going to use the Game Master board for that purpose. Now, your first thing you're going to do is you're going to take one of each of the runes. You're going to flip them face down, and you're then going to mix them all up, okay? Because you are going to basically be drawing a random configuration of runes. It really doesn't matter what you draw. You could even pick them specifically. The moment you take a picture of it or you enter the information manually into the app, you're going to get a random sequence. Now we'll draw out the runes randomly and place them on the game board. And now, just for the sake of explaining how the app works, I will place that same information onto the Game Master board. Now, once the app has acquired this information, and before we show the next one, I'm just going to put these other runes back onto the game board. So once the app acquires this information, it is going to spit out a combination of constellations for you. So you may have, for example, this symbol. You may get another constellation symbol for that one. You can also receive a red symbol. And we'll find another one here. A red symbol as follows. From all of the playthroughs that we have done, you typically get 2 constellations, meaning 2 of your symbols are correct and are on the board properly, and you get 2 incorrect symbols. Now the app will give you this information randomly based on what you have entered, and you really don't know which symbol is what. To do that, you're going to really have to play the game. Now we've made sure that the relics, I just flipped them face down because we have not acquired them. The artifacts and the character cards are all near the board. We also have our combat die. For the purposes of just showing you guys how to play, I'm going to set it up like it's a 2-player game. You can also play it as a single-player game. There are variants, but I don't really want to go through that. I've played it as a group game, and I've also played it as a single-player game. But I think it's probably best with friends. You get a lot more fun with the cooperative nature of the game, a lot more strategy. So we'll deal out 6 cards for each player. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. So we've now dealt 6 cards for each player. This will be the hand for each player, and as you notice, they do have a lot of corresponding heroes, which is good because that's how you're going to want to be activating them. But it's not necessarily great when it comes to boosting, something we'll talk about more as we get into the how to play. Now the next step is you flip over the starting cards. It really doesn't matter what position the starting cards go in. We'll just make sure you guys have a nice clear view of them and they make sense with regards to the board orientation. And that's it. You've entered information to the app. You've got some information from it. You've set up everything near the game board. The players have their cards. Our heroes are at the starting locations. And you are ready to play. Now, we're going to just cut right here. And I'll show you guys how to play Rising 5. It's actually quite simple and straightforward. Stay tuned. We've set up the game. It's time to play. But there's one thing that you really need to know before you play this game, and that are the hero's special ability, because every hero, once they are activated, does have the opportunity to use a special ability. With regards to Echo, Echo is able to move a character to any location other than themselves. So if I was activating Echo as a starting turn, I could move Nova onto the game board, for example. And that is Echo's special ability. And the special ability is activated before you play any of your cards. And that's very important because some special abilities do require you to be in the same location as other characters. Now, Nova's special ability is that she can attack any enemy on the board, and whatever happens, there are no negative consequences to it. She does not able to have like any boosts and things like that. We'll talk about as we go through the how to play. But for example, she can attack any of these small guys early on, kill them, and potentially get your team 1 silk very easily. And if we'd killed this guy, for example, we would then draw another card at the end of the turn. And that is Nova's special ability. Next we have Eli. And Eli has a pretty great special ability. I'll just move her out of the way here so that you can see. So on Eli's turn, the first thing she can do is move the eclipse track up by 1. So this is the red moon rising to eclipse the sun. You can move it up by 1 every turn. I love it. She is a great character. Use her as much as you can. Next we have Hal. And remember I said that special abilities can have to be triggered at the start of the turn before a character moves? And that's because specifically of Hal's. So what Hal does is he takes on the special ability of whatever character he's sharing a space with. Meaning, let's say we're starting out here. Starting locations do not count as them sharing a space. We'll call this sheet here player 1. So we want to start with Hal. We're going to move Hal. Well, doing that is not necessarily the greatest thing because Hal is not going to be able to use a special ability because he did not start in the same location as somebody. Now, if we go through a different sequence of play, for example, and this is just a good example for you guys, we'll say that player 1 plays Echo, moves Hal onto the board, and then moves himself onto the board. Now, I'm not going to really go into expending the character cards. I'm just really giving an example of how to use Hal's special ability. So I'll just move that off to the side. Then, for example, we players 2 turns. They trigger Nova. Nova rolls. Kills a guy. Moves to the same place as Hal. We draw another card. Then, because Nova and Hal now share the same space, Hal would be able to use Nova's ability at the start of his turn. Just move those off to the side, so it would now be Hal's turn. Hal could use Nova's special ability. And I'd put that upside down, I apologize. But let's say I'd rolled the Eclipse there. Eclipse is not good. I would then not defeat that character, but as I'm using a special ability, nothing negative would happen from rolling the Eclipse, but we're not successful. Now I'm going to put everything back where it was, as we have fully explained Hal's special ability. And now we get down to what may be, or in my opinion, is probably one of the most important characters, not the most important, is Oracle. Now I'm putting him near the runes because, and I moved him in the runes right here because Oracle is a character that lets you swap in and out runes. And that is something that you're absolutely going to have to do to try to figure out the right combinations. So at the start of Oracle's turn, for example, you can remove a blue, add an orange to the board. We'll just move that silk off there. You could also potentially swap the location of runes, as you do know from what you can see right here, that 2 of them are right. Now you're trying to get them in the right location. And that is what Oracle is able to do before taking a regular action. And now that we've reviewed all of the special abilities for the characters, just want to keep this into nice short segments. We're going to go through a full turn of Rising 5, and I'll be right back. The game board's reset, and we're just about ready to start playing. I just need to add the Red Moon cards into the character deck. So what you're going to do is you're going to select your difficulty. For the case of this playthrough, I'm going to pick 3. These other 2 cards are returned to the game box. What you then do is you basically look for about equal intervals, and then you will slide the Red Moon cards into the deck. Now, the more you space them out, like at the start, the more time and the easier you can make the game. That's just one thing that I noticed after multiple playthroughs of the game. But now we are set and ready to go. We have player 2 up here, and we have player 1 down below. What is going to be the best thing to do? We got to start getting things going, getting things moving. We've got a lot of Echo cards, so let's start with Echo. We're going to activate Echo to move him. And for each action that we take, we have to spend a card. And there are 3 actions in the game. You are able to move, have an encounter, or if you have all 4 silk out, you can attempt to seal the gate, and that's where you will also get more information about the position of your runes. And those are the 3 actions. In this case with Echo, I'm going to want to do 2 actions. So now I've taken the 2 cards, I'm spending them, and what we're going to do is Echo is going to move. We are going to acquire a clue, which I will put here for the moment. And I actually did make a slight mistake. I should have triggered Echo's special ability first. It doesn't really matter though, because it's not going to necessarily affect anything for the game, but I'm going to get Hal onto the game board to make sure that he's going to be more useful. So the first thing I would have done would have been taken Hal, move him on the game board, then I would have gone here with cost me 1 of my cards, and then the second card would be to acquire the clue. Now I'm going to want to spend the clue to figure out what one of these symbols are. You can enter it into the app. It's going to be quite easy. And I'm just going to create an example for you guys right now. I'm going to say the green one. I want the information on that. And what it's going to tell me is that the green one is blue. So the blue outline is green. That's what part of the Game Master has. You'll place it on the board next to the green one. Or what you can do, if you've got a red one out, you want to make sure the red one, that identifies that green is not the right rune. We need to get it out of there. We don't want it on the board. Take this card. We will discard it. Make a nice little pile. We will draw a new one as it's the end of our turn. And at the end of your turn, the heroes have to draw at least 1 card. Not the heroes, sorry, the players. And you can draw up to your maximum hand size. Now remember, there are the Red Moon Rising cards in there. So you don't always want to draw a lot of cards. But it's early on in the game, and it's a 2-player game, so we'll draw a couple cards, get some stuff going. Now it is player 2's turn, and we need to start getting some silk and doing some interesting things. Let's activate Nova. First thing we'll do is use Nova's special ability against one of these small guys. Let's roll and see what happens. We get a 1. As it is equal to or greater than the symbol that they have there, we are able to defeat the monster. And we will acquire 1 silk, which we put on the board. Now it is important to note that if you do acquire cards, you're not able to hold on to them. The resource goes on the board right away. When you see cards like this right here with a slash, it is either or. So it's either a silk or moving 1 up the eclipse track. There are also cards, and I'll draw one out for you right now. Perfect. That have both, which means you would acquire a silk and movement up the apocalypse track. Now we've successfully killed a monster. We are only spending 1 with Nova to move. And we're going to move Nova to Hal's location so that Hal can potentially use her special ability. Let's flip, and that is the end of the turn. We've only used 1 card. We'll draw another card for Eli, and we'll flip over the next card, which is an artifact cache. And by encountering these, so having an encounter, spending a character card, is how you acquire some of the very good artifacts. And once cards are spent in the game, you do not reshuffle them. That's why the game is only about half an hour. It can even be quicker than that. Once you go through everything, you can't get any more. Now we're going to move back on to player 1's turn. And we're going to activate, instead of Hal, we're going to activate Oracle. And we need to do a couple of interesting things. So we're actually going to spend 2 Oracle cards. We'll put them in the discard pile. And first things first, we will remove the green and place a blue on the board. As from our clue, we learned that the green is incorrect. So we will not want to have that on the board. Oracle will then move, and then we will have an encounter, which is the second card with the artifact cache. We will then draw the top artifact card, and now we're able to use this when we want to move 2 up the eclipse track, which is very, very good. We'll put this off to the side, just give it a little bit more room, and that is player 1's turn. We'll then draw another card, and we'll draw back up to 2. All right, it is now player 2's turn, and we have an option. We can still work with Oracle, we can use Nova again, or we can use Eli. And to give you guys a really good example of combat in the game and really how players can team up, and also whether you can potentially burn through some of your resources too quickly, we're going to use Eli. Now Eli, we're going to activate, we're going to spend 2 of our cards, 1 to move, 1 to have an encounter. We'll move 1 up the eclipse track. Eli will join the game board, and she's now in the same space as Oracle. Now, when you're in the same space as any number of teammates, so for example, if Hal was there, it's not going to change anything. You get a +1 bonus to your die rolls. But other characters can, not other characters, I apologize, other players can also boost your characters. So for example, your player 1 has 2 Eli cards. As you're trying to beat someone that's 4, player 1 can then spend 2 of the cards to power Eli up. Player 2 could also spend another card to power Eli up as well. And it's based on the amount of cards expended. So you can either do it yourself from your existing pile, or it can be done by another player. In this case, what would probably be the best thing to do, as just activating Eli really helps with the eclipse track. Player 1 is going to help player 2 by powering up by 1. And then we want to make sure we kill this guy. We will power up. So that is a total of 2 + 1, meaning if we roll a 1, we will succeed and defeat this monster. So let's see what happens. We will roll. We get a 2. We've got a total of +1, 2, 3, for a total of 5. We defeat the monster and acquire 2 more silk. And now we get another monster. And this is actually perfect because it's going to let me show you guys really one of the final aspects of the how to play. And that is one of the mini bosses right here. As you can see, when you defeat him, you get a clue as well as a scepter. Now you also notice there are 2 red moons here. And we'll talk about that when we explain what the Red Moon Rising event actually is. Now let's go ahead and redraw our cards. Now because player 1 helped out, they are not able to redraw their cards, but player 2 can draw back up to 6. So we get to 1, 2, 3. So I just draw 3. Yep, that is actually 6, and we are good to go. And it's now player 1's turn, and we've got something here that could be very powerful and also give us more information. It's a really good thing that we're sharing the space with Oracle. Player 2 can potentially power us up. So let's go for it. We're going to trigger Eli again for an encounter. We'll move once again up the track. She's having her encounter. Player 2 is going to spend 2 cards to power us up. Plus Oracle, we have a total of +3. So as long as we roll a 1, we will defeat the monster and gain the staff. We roll the 1, +1. Actually, we actually fail. I said it would be a 1. We needed a 2 because we had a bonus of 3. So in this case, this is actually really good to show you guys as well, because we fail, which means the red moons go off. So whenever you fail combat with a monster, the red moons go off and you go negatively down the track. Now we could counteract that with the artifact, but that's not necessarily something that we actually want to do. And that was really not a very successful turn for us. And let's take you through another one because I think we've got some interesting opportunities ahead. Player 1 is now going to redraw. We're going to try to go back up to 6. And it will then be player 2's turn. Now what are we going to do as player 2? We will then move. And we're also going to try to destroy our monster, actually. So we're just going to spend one activation. We're not necessarily going to move. We use our special ability, kill the monster over here, gaining us 1 more silk. Start the discard pile, actually. And with that, and I decided I was taking 1 action. You don't actually have to say what action you're taking. You just have to say how many actions you're taking. Nova could potentially seal the gate. And we have the silk. We might want another clue. It's actually better to get more clues. But what would, for example, happen now if we tried to seal the gate, which is what I'll actually use her action for? You're going to enter the new information into the app either by picture or doing it manually. We'll change a few things up. We'll replace the green that's on there with the blue. Or you can get new information, and perhaps, we don't know what the blue is, but we'll just say we got really lucky. Just got to find the right token here. Maybe the blue is in the right spot and we locked one. And that's what would happen. We would get the information, meaning our silk has now been expended. We no longer have it. We took a shot at sealing the gate. We've got 1 rune in the right spot, which would be very lucky. But we're not doing very well. A lot of time's gone by. We're getting close to a red moon rising, potentially. We've burned through a lot of character cards, as you can see. And once you've burned through all the character cards, you lose. Or obviously, when you get down to the end of the apocalypse track, not the apocalypse track, sorry, the eclipse track, you would lose. And that is really how you play Rising 5. You have to strategize, move around the board, and work as a team to defeat the monsters. Now what I'm going to do though is I want to explain how a Red Moon Rising event will work. So we're going to cut, we'll set it up for the Red Moon Rising, get a couple more enemies on the board, and you'll see what happens. We'll be right back. Now looking at the game board here, you can see that the gameplay is advanced. We're just going to say that player 2 has ended their turn and they're now about to start drawing more cards. And they're going to be drawing up to their full hand size. So we draw 1, 2, and then we draw the 3rd. Now the moment you draw a red moon, you have to stop drawing cards. So player 2 cannot go back up to their full hand size. They are stuck at 5 cards. Now what will then happen is that the next player, so player 1, will start and it is going to be their turn. Now once at the end of player 1's turn, you count up all the red moons on the board and then it goes off on the eclipse track. We have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on there. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. Now the important part about this is, and why you get a turn, is because you can potentially kill some of these guys and lower the amount of red moons that are going to be out there, but you can never be too sure, right? For example, you might end up drawing another monster from the deck. It could be something else. Now what is going to be our best play in this situation? And there's a couple of different things that we can try to do. First things foremost would be to spend the artifact for the 2 eclipse. So I'm just going to put that aside here. Flip it over actually to make sure everyone knows it's burnt. It's burnt. We'll move 2 up the apocalypse track. And we need to take some chances here. Let's work with Nova. So we will take 2 actions with Nova this turn. First thing we're going to do is try to kill one of the weaker monsters. We roll a 2, kill one of the weaker monsters. That's perfect. Let's draw another card. Unfortunately, it's another weaker monster. That didn't work out well. We will then move Nova, one of our actions. We will then engage with this creature right here. It's our second action. Player 1 will spend a card to boost. And we got +1 from teaming, so we've got a +2 to our roll. Let's see if we can do the kill this guy. Roll a 1 +2 equal, we kill the guy. Put that here. So from the 2 guys we killed, we have 2 more silk. And we also gain 1 more space on the eclipse track. Let's draw it out. Hopefully it's not another monster. Oof! It's not good for us. It is another monster. And it's one of the big bad boss monsters. So the red moon event goes off. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We would then lose the game. And that's why these cards are so dangerous, and why having things like the artifacts, well, we've got the sword. The sword can be very useful too to slay monsters, but artifacts like the orb right here, the pendant to block the red moon rising effect, can be so clutch in this game. We're just going to change something up quickly here. Let's look through the deck, and we'll pull out a different card. Now let's say we killed that guy. This was the card that was drawn. We were all the way up here. We then have the red moon rising event. We counted up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We are now almost dead. We can then move this card along, and then we will continue with the rest of our turn. Draw cards back up to our full hand size, and then it'll be the next player's turn. And that is how you do the red moon rising event. That's really the negative aspect, the difficulty aspect, and the big negative thing that will come out. And also what helps speed up the gameplay and keeps the game to about 30 minutes. And now that you've seen that, you know how to play Rising 5. Stay tuned for our review of the game. Rising 5, Runes of Asteros. What did you think of the game?
Well, I really like the fact that you can play the different characters and that you're playing together in the sense of, we played it with an open deck, and we played in the sense of we played together helping each other out.
Yeah, we had a, sorry to jump in right there, but we had a lot of fun with that big 5-player first group that we did, and it was interesting watching the way the whole team interacted to succeed and
I'll help you out. No, I'll help you out. I can give you one, and so that was fun. And I like the idea behind the characters' special abilities and how they're fairly evenly powered.
Yeah.
What I didn't like as much was that it didn't really come get me. The theme of it didn't make me care enough to be really passionate about it. I guess there wasn't a big bad. The last game we played together, there's a very big bad that makes me want to keep going back to beat him.
Yeah.
In this case, we played a few times, and I kind of felt like, okay, that was fun.
Yeah. Well, I noticed that you didn't really get into it the first time when you didn't know the lore. Then we talked a little bit more about the lore, and you're like, oh, that makes more sense, and it sort of piqued your interest a little bit more. But I get why you feel like there's something missing, and I'm gonna take over right now and just talk a little bit about what I think about the game. Well, I think Julie's a little bit right in terms of there's not enough for the lore to draw you in. The lore's one page. I liked it. It's good. It adds enough flavor to get me invested. But they've spent so much time on this. I mean, the art is beautiful. I want to take some time to really just look at the board again, because we didn't show this to you guys earlier. This is the back of the board. They have the planet on there. They have the starscape, as you can see. Just take a good look at the art on the board itself. It's quite clear that this is an IP that, even though it's something new, with the art by Vincent Dutré, they're invested in this. They want to do something with this. And also, when you're playing the app, you get that typical almost anime style intro to the characters, and that's something that definitely comes from Gary Kim and that Asian background. And to be honest, I would love to see them do more with this to make it a lot more fun. But that being said, I really enjoyed the game. I love the cooperative element. I really enjoy the strategic element and the timing element. The way that you do the difficulty when you're playing it with 3 to 5 moons. Now, when Julie and I played, we only played it on easy together at 3 moons. I went up to 4 and 5 moons, and I saw the way that changes everything. Maybe drawing 1 card instead of drawing 2 cards, depending on how many actions you're taking with those characters. So I really like the game. And the thing that astounds me the most is the fact that we've played it under 30 minutes most of the time. And it's a cooperative game. That is incredibly rare. You don't see that very often, and it's something that I think the game needs to be praised for. But it also plays into what I think Julie doesn't like about the game is there's no big bad. There's no huge villain, and when you're playing a 20 to 30 minute game, you're not going to get that flavor out of cooperative games, and that's very different based on everything else that we've played, I'd say.
Yeah, well, we played some games that were about 30 minutes as well that had me a little bit more invested. But that being said, one of the things I think also that works in its favor, I think, is if families are looking to play with kids, even if they're younger than 10 years, I definitely think that maybe not a group of 6-year-olds together,
Yeah.
but, parents with kids, I think as young as, a mature 6-year-old or a 7-year-old could definitely play this. Which I think is to his advantage. I mean, it's something that you could play after dinner and put it away afterwards, and it could be a lot of fun. So I think that plays in its advantage.
No, that definitely plays a big part in the advantage. Also, the game is not expensive, so instead of maybe buying, we're gonna go with U.S. pricing right here. $20 to $30 game of Monopoly, Rising 5 retails for about the same amount. You're getting a good cooperative experience, something that will teach your kids, family members to really play and work together, which is, can be very different than some family gatherings, because I know some people love to butt heads, and that can be a very nice change of pace. And it's also 20 to 30 minutes. It's great for getting a couple of multiple plays in and having a good time, even up in the difficulty level, and seeing just how good your family is saving Asteros from the rising evil that is trying to break through the gate. And we'll move on to our scores of the game now. So, Julie, what's your score?
I think the first time I played it would have been a 5. I think you managed to pull me up to a 6.
Okay. For me, I'm going to give this a really high score. It's going to be an 8.5 because I love the strategy. I like the fact that it's quick. I like the fact that it's single player. And the theme isn't as important to me as it is to Julie. Also, I love anime. So I think that a little bit of flavor, especially even that some of the artwork of Vincent Dutré is very reminiscent of Valerian and those French comic strips that I grew up with. It just kind of pulls me in a little bit more. It's a beautiful game. So if you're looking for things like that, I think it can suck you in just a little bit more. But I'm not going to argue with her saying that it's just a 6 because it didn't bring her in. There was no Thanos, and I know you were talking about quick games that draw you in. I think you're just more invested in the MCU.
There was no Master, no Thanos. I don't know. It's not just the MCU. I enjoyed it. It just was a little bit on the blah side for me.
And that's fair. But I think the main reason why you're willing to pick this up and play it again is because of how short it is and the complexity.
It is a cooperative. We get to play together, and there is a little bit of okay, what do you think, and talking it through for our strategy. So that I enjoyed.
That you enjoy, and it's not like I'm getting you to sit down and play for 2 hours this game.
No.
All right. So there you have it, guys. That is our review of Rising 5 Runes of Asteros. As you can see, 2 varying opinions on the game, but I think we can both agree that if you find this at a good price, it's something you should add to your collection.
Yeah, it's probably something I'll pull out when the nephews come over or kids' friends.
Or maybe with the godson. He'd probably get a real big kick out of that.
Yeah, gee, maybe you'll enjoy this one.
So take a look up top, whether it's right now or in a couple seconds. You will see links to our videos, links to subscribe. You can find information on our social media channels down below in the video description. Thank you guys for watching, and as always on Dice and Dragons, grab your best friend, because it's my Julie, grab your drink, and keep playing games.
You notice that the character that kicks butt the most is a girl again?
Hey, you know what? There's plenty of girls that kick butt. I watch more anime than you. There's been a lot more girls kicking butt out there than, I'd say in other cultures like Asian cultures than you've seen over in America. We're catching up, though. It's great.